I stood there, staring at Alex, trying to process the absurdity of what she was saying. Alex, listen to yourself. You're accusing me of something life-changing without a shred of proof. This isn't something you just guess about. If you're so sure, take the test. Otherwise, I can't help you. Her face hardened further, her eyes narrowing as if I'd insulted her. I know it's you, Logan. You're the only one it could be. I don't need some test to tell me what I already know. My frustration boiled over, my voice sharpening. Do you hear how ridiculous that sounds? You're accusing me of being the father of your child, but you're refusing to do the one thing that could prove it? I'm not going to sit here and let you destroy my life with baseless accusations. She stood up, her hands trembling as she clutched her coffee cup. Fine, Logan. If you want to be a coward about it, go ahead. But when this baby comes, everyone will know the truth. Mason will know. Jessica will know. Your parents will know. Everyone. Her threat hit me like a gut punch. The idea of this mess spilling over into my personal life, dragging Jessica, my family, and even Mason into it, made my blood run cold. Do what you have to, Alex, but I'm not backing down. I didn't do this, and I won't let you pin it on me. I walked out of the cafe, my head spinning. How had this even happened? The entire encounter felt surreal, like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. I got into my car and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside me. By the time I got home, I was still rattled. Jessica noticed immediately. Logan, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. I hesitated, unsure if I should tell her. But if Alex followed through with her threats, Jessica would hear about it sooner or later. I decided it was better she heard it from me. Jess, I need to tell you something crazy, and I need you to believe me when I say I didn't do anything wrong. Her brows furrowed as she sat down across from me. What's going on? I took a deep breath and laid it all out. Alex's accusation, her refusal to take a paternity test, and my absolute certainty that nothing had happened. As I spoke, I watched Jessica's expression shift from confusion to anger. Are you serious, Logan? She's accusing you of getting her pregnant? And you expect me to just take your word for it? I felt a pang in my chest. Jess, come on. You know me. I would never cheat on you. I swear. Nothing happened. She crossed her arms, her eyes cold. If nothing happened, why would she say it did? Girls don't just make this stuff up for no reason. Her words stung more than I expected. I don't know why she's saying it, Jess. Maybe she's confused. Maybe she's lying. But I didn't do it. Jessica stood up abruptly. I need some time to think about this, Logan. This is a lot to take in. She grabbed her purse and left without another word, leaving me alone with the weight of her doubt pressing down on me. The next morning, things got worse. My mom called, her voice tight with anger. Logan, what's this nonsense I'm hearing about you getting Mason's sister pregnant? The pit in my stomach deepened. Mom, it's not true. Alex is making it up. I don't know why, but I swear I didn't do anything. Well, she's telling everyone it's yours. Mason called, furious. Your dad, and I don't know what to believe right now. I clenched my jaw, the frustration bubbling over. You don't know what to believe? Mom, I've never lied to you. Why would I start now? She sighed heavily. I want to believe you, Logan, but this is serious. If she's not lying, you need to take responsibility. I ended the call, feeling more isolated than ever. My girlfriend doubted me. My parents doubted me. Even Mason, my closest friend, believed his sister over me. All I had was my word, and apparently, that wasn't enough. I spent the next few days in a haze, trying to figure out how to clear my name. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced myself for another confrontation. My life was unraveling, and it felt like there was nothing I could do to stop it. Mom, I didn't make a mistake because I didn't do anything, I said firmly, though my voice cracked slightly under the weight of the conversation. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost hear her shaking her head in disappointment. Liam, she began again, her tone softening just a fraction, denying it won't change what's already happened. You need to step up and take responsibility. This isn't just about you. It's about the baby, about Alex, and about doing the right thing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own parents, the people who had always stood by me, were now accusing me of something I didn't do, based solely on Alex's word. Mom, you don't understand. I didn't sleep with her. She's either confused or lying, but it's not true. Why can't you believe me? We believe Alex because she's a good girl, Liam, she replied sharply. We've known her for years, and there's no reason for her to make up something like this. What possible motive could she have? I let out a frustrated sigh, pacing the room as I tried to think of how to respond. I don't know, Mom. Maybe she's confused, or maybe she's trying to pin this on me for some reason. But that doesn't make her story true. If she were so sure, she'd agree to a paternity test. And if the test proves you're the father, she challenged. It won't, I shot back. Because I'm not. My mom let out a weary sigh. Liam, I think you need to come over so we can discuss this as a family. Avoiding it won't make it go away. I'm not avoiding anything. I snapped, the frustration finally bubbling over. I'm trying to figure out how to deal with the fact that everyone, including my own parents, is believing a lie instead of trusting me. There was a long silence before she spoke again, her voice tinged with disappointment. We'll be here when you're ready to face the truth. I hung up without saying goodbye, my hands trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. I couldn't stay in the house anymore. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, suffocating me with the weight of the accusations and the betrayal from those closest to me. Jessica was out running errands, so I grabbed my keys and drove aimlessly for a while, trying to clear my head. I ended up at the park, sitting on a bench and staring blankly at the playground where kids were laughing and running around without a care in the world. It was a cruel contrast to the chaos in my life. My phone buzzed, and I glanced at the screen. It was Mason. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but I knew I couldn't avoid him forever. I reluctantly answered. Hey, Mason. Liam, he said, his voice tense. We need to talk. I let out a tired sigh. Yeah, I figured. Alex is a wreck, he began. She says you're denying everything, refusing to take responsibility. What the hell is going on? What's going on? I replied evenly. Is that your sister is lying, or at least mistaken? Mason, I didn't sleep with her. I have no idea why she's saying this, but it's not true. Liam, come on, he said, exasperation creeping into his voice. You've been my best friend for years. I want to believe you, but Alex wouldn't make this up. She's not that kind of person. And I'm not the kind of person to cheat on my girlfriend or lie to my best friend. I shot back. Why is everyone so quick to believe her, but not me? Because she's pregnant, Liam, he snapped. And she's saying it's yours. That's not something you just pull out of thin air. I pinched the bridge of my nose, feeling a headache coming on. Mason, I understand this is a mess, and I get why you're upset. But I swear to you, nothing happened. If she's so sure, she needs to take a paternity test. That's the only way to settle this. He was silent for a moment before muttering. Yeah, maybe. I'll talk to her. I hung up, feeling no better than I had before. If anything, the conversation had only reinforced how isolated I felt. My best friend, my girlfriend, my parents, none of them believed me. It was like I was shouting into a void, and no one could hear me. When I got home, Jessica was back. She looked at me warily as I walked through the door, as if she didn't quite know how to approach me. Did you figure anything out? She asked cautiously. Not really, I admitted, dropping onto the couch. Mason's going to talk to Alex about the paternity test, but who knows if she'll agree to it. Jessica sat down across from me, her expression unreadable. Liam, I want to believe you, but this whole situation is it's hard. I know, I said quietly. It's hard for me too. We sat in heavy silence, the weight of everything hanging between us like an invisible wall. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly alone. I stood outside Alex's apartment, my fists clenched and my mind racing with a mix of anger and desperation. This confrontation felt like my last chance to salvage what was left of my life. Taking a deep breath, I knocked on the door. After a few seconds, the door opened, and there she was looking startled to see me. Liam, what are you doing here? She asked, her voice cautious. We need to talk, I said firmly, pushing down the urge to yell. This has gone too far, Alex. You're ruining my life with these lies. Her expression shifted into something colder, more defiant. I'm not lying, she said, crossing her arms. I told you the truth, and now you're here to bully me into silence. I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, letting the door close behind me. This isn't bullying, Alex. This is me trying to figure out why you're doing this. Why are you trying to pin this on me when you know it's not true? Alex sighed, shaking her head as she sat down on the edge of her couch. Liam, I'm not trying to pin anything on you. You were there that night. You were drunk. You don't remember, but I do. Her words only fueled my frustration. That's just it, Alex. I wasn't that drunk. I remember leaving with Jessica. I remember the whole night. Nothing happened between us. She hesitated for a moment, her gaze flickering to the floor. For the first time, I saw a crack in her resolve, a tiny sliver of doubt that made me press harder. If you're so sure, then take a paternity test, I insisted. It's the only way to prove who the father is. If you're telling the truth, you have nothing to lose. But if you're lying, I let the sentence hang, hoping the weight of my words would sink in. I don't trust those tests, she muttered, her voice defensive but quieter now. They can be tampered with. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Tampered with? Alex, that's ridiculous, and you know it. You're just making excuses because deep down, you know I'm not the father. Who is it, Alex? Who are you really trying to cover for? Her head shot up, her eyes narrowing. I'm not covering for anyone, she snapped. Stop trying to twist this around. You're the one who's lying. The conversation was going nowhere, and my patience was wearing thin. If you're going to keep playing this game, then I'll handle it my way, I said, my voice firm. I'll get a court order for the test. You won't be able to avoid it. You wouldn't dare, she said, her defiance returning. Do you really want to drag this through court? Think about what that'll do to your reputation, to your family. I stepped back, shaking my head in disbelief. You've already destroyed my reputation. My parents think I'm a monster. Jessica doesn't trust me anymore. Mason won't even talk to me. What else do I have to lose, Alex? Her silence was deafening, and for a moment, I thought I'd finally gotten through to her. But then she stood up, her expression unreadable. You should leave, she said quietly. Fine, I replied, my voice tight. But this isn't over. I'll do whatever it takes to clear my name, Alex. You've left me no choice. As I walked out of her apartment, I felt a strange mix of anger and determination. Alex wasn't going to make this easy, but I wasn't going to let her lies destroy me. One way or another, I was going to prove the truth, even if it meant going to court. Back in my car, I sat for a moment, staring at the dashboard. This fight was far from over, but for the first time I felt like I had a plan. I wasn't going to let Alex win. I wasn't going to let her lies define me. Tomorrow, I'd start taking the next steps, hiring a lawyer, filing for a court-ordered paternity test, and doing whatever it took to rebuild my life. Because no matter how hard Alex tried to tear me down, I wasn't going to give up. She brought her hands to her mouth, her voice trembling. Oh, Liam, I'm so sorry. My dad, however, stayed silent, his face unreadable. I stepped further into the room, holding up the official document. Here's the proof, I said, my voice firmer than I expected. I told you I was telling the truth. I didn't lie, and I didn't do anything wrong. My mom stood up, reaching for the paper with shaking hands. She read it, her lips quivering, before passing it to my dad. We were wrong, she whispered, her eyes locked on mine. We should have believed you. Can you ever forgive us? I wanted to feel relief, maybe even vindication, but all I felt was an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. You didn't even give me the benefit of the doubt, I said, my tone sharper than intended. Your first instinct was to believe Alex, not your own son. My dad finally spoke, his voice gruff. We didn't know what to think, Liam. Alex seemed so sure, and we've known her family for years. It was a mistake, a bad one, but we were trying to do what we thought was right. Right? I let out a bitter laugh. You threw me out of the house and called me a liar without even giving me a chance to prove myself. That's what you thought was right. My mom reached out as if to comfort me, but I took a step back. Liam, please. We were wrong. We see that now. We'll do whatever it takes to make this up to you. I shook my head, trying to keep my emotions in check. You can't just erase what you said and did. You didn't trust me when it mattered most. That's not something I can just forget overnight. My dad stood, his shoulders slumped. You're right. We failed you. But you've proven yourself, and we want to make it right. Come back home, son. Let's start over. I hesitated, the anger and hurt still raw. But part of me wanted to believe they were sincere. I'll think about it, I said finally. But don't expect things to go back to how they were. Not yet. They nodded, seeming to understand the weight of their betrayal. My mom's tears flowed freely now, and my dad looked more defeated than I'd ever seen him. I left without another word, feeling both a sense of closure and a lingering bitterness. As I drove away, I thought about what came next. The results had cleared my name, but they wouldn't erase the damage Alex's lies had caused. Jessica still hadn't called me, and Mason remained distant. There were bridges to rebuild, or maybe some to let burn. The next day, I contacted Carl to discuss what could be done about Alex. Can I sue her for defamation? I asked, still seething from everything I'd endured. It's possible, Carl said thoughtfully. But these cases can be messy, especially when there's a child involved. If you're serious about pursuing it, we can look into it, but be prepared for a fight. I thought about it long and hard. Part of me wanted to make Alex pay for the hell she'd put me through, but another part of me just wanted to move on. In the end, I decided to wait and see how things played out. A few days later, I got a text from Mason. Can we talk? It read. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. After everything, I wasn't sure if I was ready to face him, but curiosity, and maybe a sliver of hope, won out. We met at a quiet bar, both of us nursing our drinks in an awkward silence. Finally, Mason spoke. Liam, I owe you an apology. Alex confessed everything. She admitted you weren't the father, and that she lied because she was scared and didn't know who else to blame. I set my drink down, the words hitting me like a punch. She admitted it? Just like that? Mason nodded, guilt etched on his face. Yeah, she said she panicked and thought you were the safest person to pin it on. I'm so sorry, man. I should have believed you. I should have been there for you. I stared at him, trying to process the mix of emotions swirling inside me. You weren't just my friend, Mason. You were like a brother, and you didn't even give me a chance. He looked down, shame written all over him. I messed up, big time. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to make things right. I took a deep breath, my anger starting to wane. You can start by making sure Alex tells everyone the truth, publicly, because I'm done letting her lies define my life. Mason nodded. She's already agreed to it. She's going to talk to your parents, Jessica, everyone. It was a start, but the road to rebuilding my life was still long. At least now, I had the truth on my side. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could finally see a way forward. But life had one more curveball to throw my way. It started with a random email one morning. The subject line simply read, I need to talk to you. I opened it cautiously, half expecting another wave of drama. Instead, the sender turned out to be Alex's ex-boyfriend, Brandon. I hesitated, unsure if I even wanted to read what he had to say, but curiosity got the better of me. The email was long, apologetic, and full of details that made my stomach churn. Liam, it began, I owe you an apology. I've recently found out about everything Alex has been doing to you, and I can't stay silent anymore. She told me I was the father of her baby before she accused you. When I pushed for a paternity test, she cut me off completely and moved on to you. I think she's doing this because she's scared and doesn't know who the father really is. My hands tightened in a fist as I read his words. Brandon's email went on to detail Alex's erratic behavior, her attempts to manipulate him, and the way she had turned their mutual friends against him when he questioned her. It was disturbingly similar to what she had done to me. The email ended with a plea. If you're willing, I'd like to meet up and share what I know. Maybe together, we can figure out how to finally stop her from doing this to anyone else. I sat back, staring at the screen. Part of me didn't want to get involved anymore. I had worked so hard to cut Alex out of my life. But another part of me wanted answers, wanted justice for the damage she'd caused. A week later, Brandon and I met at a small diner on the edge of town. He was tall, lanky, and looked just as worn out by this ordeal as I felt. He wasted no time getting to the point. I didn't believe it at first, Brandon said, stirring his coffee absently. But after everything she's done to you, I realized she's capable of anything. She used the same tactics on me, accusations, guilt trips, turning people against me. I think she's using this baby as a way to manipulate people, but I honestly don't think she knows who the father is. Why didn't you push harder for the paternity test? I asked, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. I tried, he said, looking down at his cup. But she threatened to accuse me of all kinds of things. I didn't have the resources to fight her. So I walked away. We spent the next hour sharing stories, piecing together the web of lies Alex had spun. By the end of our conversation, I had a clearer picture of the person she truly was, a master manipulator who thrived on control and chaos. Brandon mentioned he had already started talking to a lawyer about his own case against Alex. Maybe if we both come forward with everything we know, we can stop her for good, he said. I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. Maybe this was the closure I needed. Over the next few months, Brandon and I worked with our lawyers to compile evidence against Alex. We gathered emails, text messages, and witness testimonies from others she had manipulated. It was a slow, grueling process, but I was determined to see it through. When the court date finally arrived, Alex looked shocked to see both Brandon and me standing together. For once, she didn't seem so confident. The evidence we presented was damning. Alex had lied to multiple people about the paternity of her child, manipulated friends and family, and caused irreparable harm to those she targeted. The judge ruled in our favor, granting Brandon and me the legal victories we had been fighting for. As I walked out of the courthouse that day, I felt a sense of relief I hadn't experienced in months. It wasn't just about winning. It was about reclaiming my life and proving that the truth could prevail. In the weeks that followed, I started rebuilding. I focused on my work, reconnected with some old friends, and even started therapy to process everything I had been through. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. As for Alex, she faded into the background of my life. I heard through the grapevine that she had moved to another city, trying to start over. I didn't care to know more. The scars she left were deep, but they didn't define me. I had survived her lies, her manipulation, and the betrayal of people I once trusted. And in the end, I came out stronger, ready to face whatever life had in store for me next. As much as the court's decision vindicated me, it was hard to ignore the weight of the damage my parents had already done. Their relentless attempts to control and manipulate me had left deep scars, and even though I was legally free from their interference, I knew they wouldn't stop entirely. The day after the case was dismissed, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Liam, it's Mom. Her voice wavered, as if she was trying to sound broken. We never meant for it to go this far. We just wanted to help you. I clenched my jaw. Help me? By trying to ruin my life? By calling my boss, lying to my friends, and dragging me to court? That's not help, Mom. That's control. Liam, please, she pleaded. We were scared. We thought we were losing you. Can't you see that we were acting out of love? Love! I snapped. If this is your version of love, I don't want any part of it. You didn't trust me. You didn't believe me. And you sure as hell didn't respect me. I'm done, Mom. Don't call me again. I hung up before she could respond. My hands shook as I put my phone down. Part of me felt guilty for cutting her off so harshly, but the larger part of me knew it was necessary. I couldn't let them keep dragging me into their toxic cycle. In the weeks that followed, I worked hard to rebuild what they had tried to tear down. I met with Frank, my boss, and assured him that my parents were no longer a factor in my life. To my relief, he was understanding and supportive. You've always been a solid worker, Liam, he said. I'm sorry you had to deal with all that, but let me know if there's anything you need. I also reached out to Mason, trying one last time to salvage our friendship. Mason, I said over coffee one afternoon, I need to know where we stand. I understand if you're caught in the middle with your sister and my parents, but I need to move on with my life. If you can't see my side of this, maybe it's best we go our separate ways. He sighed, looking torn. Liam, I've known you for years, but I've also known Alex my whole life. It's hard to reconcile the two sides of this. I don't want to lose our friendship, but I don't know how to navigate this mess. I nodded, realizing this was the end of an era. I get it, Mason, but I can't keep fighting for people who don't believe in me. Take care of yourself. We parted ways, and I left with a sense of closure, even if it wasn't the outcome I had hoped for. Therapy became my sanctuary. My therapist, a no-nonsense woman named Elena, helped me unpack the layers of betrayal and manipulation I had endured. "You've been through a lot," she said during one session, "but you've also shown incredible strength by standing up for yourself. That's not something everyone can do." Her words stayed with me. For the first time in months, I began to feel like I was regaining control over my life. I focused on my work, built new friendships, and even started exploring hobbies I had neglected for years. Hiking became my escape, a way to clear my mind and reconnect with myself. Months later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from my dad. The envelope sat on my counter for days before I finally opened it. "Liam, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I don't expect you to read this. But if you do, I want you to know that I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Your mother and I were wrong, and we let our fear and pride blind us. Losing you has been the hardest thing we've ever faced. I hope one day you can find it in your heart to let us back into your life, even if it's just a small part. Love, Dad." I read the letter twice, then put it back in the envelope. I wasn't ready to forgive them, but for the first time, I felt like maybe they were starting to understand the damage they had caused. Life isn't perfect now, but it's mine. I've learned to set boundaries, to prioritize my own well-being, and to surround myself with people who genuinely support me. The past will always be a part of my story, but it doesn't define me. I'm moving forward one step at a time, and for the first time in a long time, I feel free. One morning, just when I thought things couldn't possibly sink lower, I stepped outside to find my car completely destroyed. The windows were shattered, the tires slashed, and the word liar was spray-painted in bold red letters across the hood. I froze, disbelief washing over me like a cold wave. My car, my one reliable escape, was now a symbol of my unraveling life. I knew instantly who was behind it. My parents, or someone they had convinced to act on their behalf, were the only ones who would stoop this low. They'd already shown they were willing to go to extreme lengths to torment me. Still, seeing the destruction in front of me felt like a punch to the gut. I called the police, filed a report, and watched as they took pictures and notes, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't lead anywhere. Without concrete evidence or witnesses, the vandals, my parents, would face no consequences. It was just another reminder that they weren't going to stop until they had wrecked everything in my life. As if the car vandalism weren't enough, they upped the ante by suing me for emotional distress. That's right. My parents filed a lawsuit claiming that my decision to cut ties with them had caused them unbearable emotional suffering. The audacity of it was staggering. After dragging me through the mud and trying to destroy every part of my life, they had the nerve to demand compensation for their pain. When I told Carl, my lawyer, about the lawsuit, he rolled his eyes. "This case is laughable, Liam," he said with a smirk. "We'll crush it in court." And he was right. The judge took one look at their baseless claims and dismissed the case almost immediately. Not only that, but my parents were ordered to pay my legal fees for wasting everyone's time. It was a small victory in the midst of a war that felt endless. Then came the family reunion stunt. I found out through a text from one of my cousins. "Hey, are you going to the big family gathering at your parents' house this weekend?" My stomach churned. I hadn't been invited, of course. This was a calculated move by my parents, an attempt to rally the family against me and pressure me into reconciling with them. I called Carl again. "They're using the family now," I said, my voice shaking with frustration. Carl sighed on the other end of the line. "Liam, this has gone on long enough. It's time for a restraining order." At first, I hesitated. Despite everything, they were still my parents. But as I thought about the months of sabotage, manipulation, and relentless harassment, I knew Carl was right. If I didn't take a stand now, they would never stop. The restraining order was granted a few weeks later. It barred my parents from contacting me directly or indirectly, including through friends or family members. If they violated the order, they'd face legal consequences. It was bittersweet, an official end to what was left of our relationship. But it also meant I could finally start to heal without their shadow looming over me. For the first time in months, I felt a sliver of peace. The constant fear of their interference began to fade. There were no more harassing calls to my boss, no rumors spreading like wildfire, and no sudden ambushes in my life. I started focusing on picking up the pieces. I moved to a new apartment, leaving behind the space that had become a battleground. I began reconnecting with the few friends who had stood by me through everything. Slowly, I started going to therapy, where I began unpacking the emotional scars left by my parents' betrayal. It wasn't easy. Some days, the weight of everything felt unbearable. But I reminded myself that I was finally free. I didn't have to answer to anyone's demands or endure their manipulation anymore. Each small step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Over time, my life began to stabilize. I found a new job with a better work environment and met people who didn't know me as the guy in the middle of family drama. I discovered hobbies that gave me joy and purpose: hiking, photography, and even cooking. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living for me. Of course, the pain didn't vanish overnight. I still grieved the loss of my family, even though I knew cutting ties was the right decision. The memories of their betrayal lingered, but they no longer defined me. Therapy helped me see that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most can cause the deepest wounds. And walking away isn't weakness, it's survival. Looking back, I realized that the most important thing I gained from all of this wasn't freedom or peace, it was myself. I had rediscovered who I was beneath the weight of their manipulation and expectations. I learned to stand up for myself, to set boundaries, and to prioritize my own well-being. My parents' toxicity had tried to break me, but instead, it forged a version of me that was stronger, wiser, and more resilient. I had survived the storm, and now, for the first time in my life, I was free to live on my terms. Despite the scars, I found peace in knowing that I had done what was necessary to protect myself. And for that, I had no regrets.